they choose to lead. Mark's vision for Traystate is to build a strong presence that can positively influence the Australian financial advice industry and provide the market with a visible and intelligent, it's bad when you can't even spell it, intelligent, alternative to traditional financial advice. So next, as I said, they all provided their bios. Clayton Daniel. For I have the pride, the privilege, and the pleasure of introducing you to this night. I first met him atop a mountain near Jerusalem, praying to God. Next, he amazed me, still further in Italy, when he saved a fatherless beauty from her dreadful Turkish uncle. And I remember this distinctly. In Greece, he spent a whole year in silence, just to better understand the sound of a whisper. With no more ado, I give you the seeker of serenity, the protector of Italian virginity, the enforcer of the Lord God, the one, the only, Clayton Daniel. Do not send me a joke bio. Don't to anyone else. So today we're talking about going beyond the SoA. So what does that mean for these three people who are in and around our industry? So to start us off, Mia would love to hear about what... Oh, I'll sit down. Ooh. Mia, I'd love to hear about what you guys at XYLive are doing.
Sure. It's XYLive. Clear that one up.
Thank you.
So, being a process-based person, I did want to actually share part of our process tonight, and it's what we call our terms of engagement meeting, and it happens after our discovery meeting, but before we present an SoA. And the reason why I thought it was relevant tonight was because it carries more weight and adds more value than simply just presenting an SoA. And rather than talk you through every single step that happens during that meeting, I just wanted to highlight two main parts. One of them being that we've added in what the roadblocks are to clients actually achieving things by themselves. So what they need advisors for. And the three most common things that we've found is time. So our clients don't have the time to dedicate to doing the things they need to do by themselves. And the other one is fear. So they have this fear of making the wrong decision, so they don't make a decision at all. And then the final one is around paralysis by analysis. So they spend all this time looking online at all the different options that they have available, and then they never actually take any action. So as advisors, it's our job to help them overcome those roadblocks. And we found adding that to our process is really helpful. The other part that I wanted to talk about was around how we can better get clients to visualize what it would look like if they did work with us. And what we decided to do was to build an advice timeline. So it's a timeline of everything that we want them to do, so what their long-term aspirations are, and then also what the advice priorities are. So what we're going to be doing from an advice perspective. And we use lots of images within this document to try and illustrate what it would look like if they do some of those more boring financial things up front, which then means that they can achieve those long-term objectives. So the purchasing of the new car, or the home purchase, or the investment property purchase, whatever it may be. We found by adding in something which is a lot more visual, it just helps the client understand how all of the advice fits together.
I'm just going to take liberty to move everyone over. As much as I like being the centre of attention, we just all sit over so everyone can see you guys do better. Okay, Mark, what are you guys doing? And did I say your business name right? Probably not.
Yeah, you did.
Oh yes, nailed it.
This is a pretty good effort. You made a better job of pronouncing the business name than the rest of the intro. A few long words in there, mate.
Very intelligent.
So, I think, how many advisors do we have in the room? I think the numbers are reasonably good. good, aren't they, relative to the... Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. So, is there any advisor here that thinks that their clients are enthused and energised by reading an SoA? Yeah, that's kind of the response I expected. And yet we've allowed this document to become the centre and dominate the way that we run our businesses. So, you know, why has that happened and why are we letting that continue? I think are big questions. And until we shrink wrap this beast in our businesses and make sure that it doesn't dominate what we do, but it's just ancillary to all of the good stuff, I think we're going to be constrained in terms of the way that we engage our clients. So you have to understand where the history of the SoA and the regulations that surround it, but essentially it's a document that's dominated by the licensee and legislation, neither of which have your clients particularly in mind. So if you're going to bring the client back to the centre of what you do, and if you want a great business, you've got to have the client at the centre, right? The SoA needs to be shrink wrapped so that you can do all the really great stuff around it. SoA is not going to go away. Compliance is always going to be there. It's going to increase, not decrease. It's there for a reason. We've had a lowest common denominator business model across our industry, unfortunately. You know, if you're a licensee and you've got 100 advisors, you've got to deal with the guy that's the worst at doing his job, right? So if you're the guy that's the best, you're stuck with the same rules and regulations of the licensee as the worst guy. So, that's not a great business model, which is why I'm an advocate of being self-licensed, so you don't actually have that issue. So there's some of the things that have created an SoA, and from my perspective and the way that our business looks at things, we are growing way beyond the SoA. We're shrink wrapping it. We're not putting it at the centre of our business. We're not allowing it to dictate the way that we do things. But it's got a use. It has to be there. And when we are advising around products and we need an SoA, it becomes an incidental part of what we do, not the driver of what we do. So if you think about all the technology that you have in your business, a lot of that is all around generating a statement of advice. Well, the centre of our technology is about client engagement. And yes, we have software that produces a very good and compliant statement of advice. It's Midwinter Julian and Naomi, you know that, it's great. So that's doing a fantastic job from a compliance perspective. But in terms of the way that we engage our clients, we've put client engagement and our client relationship management at the centre of what we do. All of the good stuff isn't in an SoA. The problem is that the processes and procedures that we have in our industry are all about data collection around that stuff, which is low value. So we're really brilliant at recording all of the low value data, and we're really bad at recording all of the good stuff. So that gets lost in the ether. It's just a conversation, right? So the next iteration of tools to support what we do has to help us collect the really good and valuable data and then be able to re-deliver that to our clients to create a richer and deeper experience which feels much more personal to them. So I didn't want it to be a monologue, and I'll jump off the soapbox. This fella can have the microphone.
Okay, good segue. So, Clayton, the secret of serenity. What are you doing to go beyond the SoA?
When I think of what's beyond the SoA, I think, first of all, what's in the SoA, and then what's not in the SoA, and how much value an advisor gives people within an SoA and how much they give outside of the SoA. So, in an SoA, what do you got? An insurance recommendation, super recommendation, investment portfolio, and what's not in an SoA. So you've got an entire relationship with the person where they start making smart decisions based on their trust with you as the advisor, and as that trust and relationship grows, they just automatically start making better decisions. They can go on at any point onto Google and within 2 minutes find the solution that they need, but up until the point that they have a trusting relationship, they're not going to make any changes. And the reason for that is people don't engage with their money on an irrational level. They engage with their money on an emotional level. And so you take the role as the advisor of, instead of Google, you connect the person emotionally to their own outcome, and then they have a better life. So could you do that without an SoA? Yeah, you probably could. Is it worth doing without an SoA? Probably not. So I say that it's worth being a financial advisor, even though someone who's not a financial advisor could do it. Because with being a financial advisor, you automatically have the things that are in the SoA taken care of. So that's almost a by and by. It's, these are the functional things that we have to do, which was the birth of the industry, and yet now is almost the backstop. So when I think beyond the SoA, or even as Peter put it earlier, before the SoA, thank you, she points out that there's a lot that goes on in forming that trust relationship before someone walks in the door. What's crazy is now that in the last couple of months, only a handful of months, less than a handful of months, that I haven't been a financial advisor, and I've started doing blogs and books and articles and whatnot, more people come to me for advice now than ever. So random people on LinkedIn will just message me or email me, on Twitter, everywhere. Now that I've stopped being, now that I'm talking publicly about the things that every single person in this room can talk about, because it's not in the SoA, but now I'm just focused on it because I don't have an SoA, people are really resonating with it. And it's that whole trust piece, it's the whole engagement, it's the whole relationship piece. So yeah, when I think about what's beyond the SoA, I think about that's the majority of advice, that's the relationship with the person, that's the education, that's where they're going to get the value. And yet, someone like myself, who's not an advisor anymore, could never do the role of an advisor. So it's always totally worth being.
I'll go back to you, Mia. You talked about within your engagement meeting, you talk about the 3 roadblocks you addressed with the clients. My question, and we're going to throw up questions to the audience, and we've got roving mics that we'll come around with. But my question, when you say that, what are you finding is like the number 1 roadblock? Out of the 3 that you addressed, what's the number 1 reason people aren't being financially successful on their own?
It's definitely that paralysis by analysis. Whenever we meet with a client and run through those roadblocks, whenever we say that one thing, we get the head nod and going, that's exactly what I've been doing. They're saying, well, yeah, I spent all this time online looking at all these options, and I spoke to my friend about what I should be doing, but I wasn't sure, so I just haven't done anything. So I thought I'd come to you and try and work out what I should be doing. So I think that's probably like the number 1 reason why people aren't doing things by themselves, and that's why it's one of the reasons why they do seek advice.
Yeah, totally agree. That's definitely the one that resonated with me, and I see clients all the time that I pretty much tell them if they leave the meeting and they don't become a client, I say, that's fine, I'll chase up 6 months' time and just touch base and say, have you done what we talked about you were going to do?
Yeah, and time works as an asset in that way, because there's so many clients where you meet with them, they won't go ahead at that one point, and then whether it's 3 months, 6 months later, you just send that email and you use one piece of information that you have and say, oh, and how's that going? And then they'll come back to you and go, oh, I haven't actually done that. I'm like, well, we're going to come in and have a chat.
And so, Mark, I'll throw over to you. You did talk about licensing and compliance being an issue when talking about stuff that isn't in the statement of advice. And you talked about self-licensing is really a great thing to do. But how do we do that when our industry is built up around licensing models? ASIC basically don't really want us all to become self-licensed. It's a lot more work for them to regulate 18,000 advisors when they can just regulate large licensees. So as a whole, we've got a big movement pushing us to keep the current model, and you're saying the best way is to move to a model that everyone is pushing us away from. How do we manage that as a licensed advisor, non-self-licensed? It feels like a huge hurdle to go into the self-license game.
Yeah, look, I think that's an urban myth. It's not difficult to obtain a license. It's not difficult to sustain and service a license. I can't see any advantages of the licensee model, frankly, outside of ASIC having to potentially look after a smaller number of licenses. But it's the bigger licensees that have had the issues, right? So in terms of, if ASIC are there saying, well, we don't have the resources to look at all of these individual licensees, they're actually the big compliance failures are coming out of the big product houses that have only sustained big licenses because it's a distribution channel. So, nobody makes money out of being a licensee without taking margin on product. There's a couple around the edges that are kind of doing okay. But mostly that's a fact, right? So if it's a distribution channel, then, ASIC is a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because, you're creating an environment where the licensee needs to take margin from the product, which in itself creates a compliance issue. So unless you unwind that and you allow everybody to be individually licensed, sure, there's a lot more licenses that you need to regulate, but you're going to unwind the problem because the licensees no longer need to distribute product to make the license financially viable. So it's once you kind of think that through, it's pretty obvious that the current structure isn't great and it's not long-term sustainable.
But, I'm going to push back on that, because aren't you being a little bit disingenuous saying it's an urban myth that self-license isn't that hard? Because you've got to think about the support networks that a licensee can provide, the technology that they can provide, the compliance updates. Like, do I really want to be reading ASIC's, updates? So there is a lot of support that licensees can provide a small single advisor business.
Okay, here's an idea. How about a business that supplies a full service suite to an advice business without being a licensee?
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, and somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to do it pretty soon. And when they do, it's going to be very disruptive, and it's going to be a fantastic next step in what we do. You can put all of the tools together without being a licensee, so you remove that conflict. But what you're doing is actually providing a whole bunch of really great services to advisors, stuff that they really need. So if you want to put a CRM in the middle of your business, and you want to use something like Salesforce, for example, that's really expensive. So if you can't organise some group buying around that, you're not going to be able to do it. So it's really hard to improve your business model unless you have a supplier that's prepared to deliver services without it being hooked to a license that requires you to sell their product.
Yes, again, just so everyone's aware, Ben told me, Phil, you went to because you're going to push back on them. So that's what I'm
just
doing.
on Clayton, that's what I was hoping.
But isn't that what a licensee is? They group buy all the technology, and then tacking on that and making sure advisors are compliant, but then tacking on that license is really a small part of that service offering. So if there was a separate company that did all of that without the license, wouldn't they be charging the same fee as a licensee?
Yeah, quite possibly, and that's commercially reasonable. But what you're getting is you're getting a delivery of services that help you grow your business and help you have better relationships with your clients, versus a model where you're not getting any of those things. You're getting delivered a suite of services designed to protect the licensee, not give a good experience to your clients. It makes no sense.
I agree. Let's go to a question.
Full disclosure, I, like Mike, have decided to go self-licensed, but I think there is every opportunity in licensed land, but can I please ask that you stop letting your dealer groups treat you like children? We allow them to be our parents, and it is not appropriate. They're a service provider. A fabulous one potentially, but we allow them to talk to us like we are secondary to them, when in fact they're just another service provider like all the other ones you use. And if we change that dynamic in the industry, I think the compliance stuff would start to change a little bit. I think the attitude would start to change, because we'd be saying, this document is not good enough, fix it, instead of, all right, it's what I've got to do. So I think you can absolutely change. You can stay as a person within a dealer group. I actually think for some people it's perfect. But I think we need to demand more constantly of those groups that we're allowing to define the future of our business.
Yeah, Peter, I don't think that's going to work because of the lowest common denominator model. So clearly you're correct, but if you've got, if you're the licensee, if you had 50 of you, great business, but you don't. One of you and 49 others, right? So it's about the worst of those 50. That's where the compliance comes from. So whilst that exists, whilst the licensee is taking the risk for the advice, you're going to be compromised.
So, moving on to Clayton, is compliance... So, it was a facetious bio, but Clayton's no longer an advisor. So, is compliance a reason you left advice?
It played a big role, definitely. Compliance, if compliance was this, if compliance was a better result for clients, I'd be all for it. But as you just alluded to, it's normally just to protect the dealer group, which you don't really want to say, unless you feel like standing up to them. Yeah, I just found myself doing a bunch of stuff which was all about the dealer group rather than the client. And the strange thing was, the more I got focused on the client, and the more tailored the advice got to the client, and the more I stepped out of the framework, the more compliance became a problem. And I thought, that's a broken model. If I was smart enough, I probably would have just self-licensed.
So we've got a question from Ben Nash.
Yeah, okay, I'll give you a question. I'll direct this one at Nagali, because I know he's has a tendency to become opinionated about certain things. But, okay, so we agree that there's all this work that we do outside the SoA. That's the real value. The SoA document's a compliance document. It doesn't really add value. So I suppose the question is, what's the solution? Is it that we make the SoA simpler? Is it that we have no SoA? Is it, what does a forward-thinking modern advisor, how do they solve this problem to, continue to add value without being burdened by compliance, but then, to ensure that consumers are protected?
Yeah, so I think you do that by putting the SoA in its place. So I think a modernised advice business will have less licensed advisors and more advisors that are not licensed doing the great stuff. And you're going to will the product guy in. So, with Clayton's business model, there's so many advantages around that. You have this inherent weakness because you can't deliver on the product when it's required. And let's be honest, it's often required, right? So you need to be able to pull somebody in to just discharge the compliance piece. So I think what we're going to see is a shift in the balance of the way that we staff our businesses. And yeah, the SoA will always be there, and it should be, because when you are moving product, you need to make sure that that's best interest, not remuneration stuff. But we are out there kind of creating a new category here, right? So I think that's a good thing, because 80% of adult Australians do not like what we do. They're not hearing us, they don't use us, makes no sense. If we kind of have the courage to evolve and create this new segment, we're going to service way beyond the 20% that we currently do, and the SoA will be just a shrink-wrapped component of that.
So, and just to follow up, and I'd like to hear it from the others on this as well. But do we just accept that the SoA is always going to be a boring, long, cumbersome document, or is there a better solution?
We don't need to accept that it's a boring, long, cumbersome document, because that is your licensee and their lawyers that create that. ASIC do not want or advocate 100-page SOAs.
Okay, so you're self-licensed and you've spent time thinking about your SOA. Do you think that your SOA is amazing and just blows people's minds when you present it to them?
No, and it's not designed to be. Absolutely not.
So is there a better solution, or what?
Yes, there is, because I think that, we're evolving to a point where there's more than one document. So, we will be producing guidebooks, which is more about well-being, happiness, lifestyle, satisfying other areas of a client's life, and the SOA will be put in its place, so it will not be the dominant document. So I don't sit here, Ben, saying we've done all this stuff and we've got it all right. What I'm confident about is the direction that we're moving in, and I think that there will be two documents, and the life document, the guidebook, whatever you choose to call that, will be all of the really fantastic stuff. But where it starts is you need the systems and the processes within a business to be able to collect the great stuff. That right now, that doesn't exist. All we're collecting is the technical stuff, because it feeds into the SoA, and that gets rammed out to the client, and you've left all of the conversation on the table, which is kind of a tragedy, right? Because that's where all the good stuff is. But there are not the tools currently available to be able to absorb that, use that data and regurgitate it to create a richer experience for the client.
Okay, we've got another audience question over here.
I just wanted to ask did you keep on referring it to the SOA as the centrepiece? Why? Why do you think it's a centrepiece? Why have you made it the centrepiece?
We haven't made it the centrepiece.
I think more historically, as advice.
I'm talking industry-wide.
We have made
it's the centrepiece document.
I mean, because I tend to view my SOA as kind of more like my TV manual. It's there, had to be gone through, but realistically, you're right. It needs to be kind of like short, concise, and give the value. But there's still no solution.
I think that the solutions are on the way. But at this point, when I say about the SOA being a centrepiece, I talk about the industry in general, not necessarily individual businesses. I know a lot of individual businesses that are really bucking that trend, and they're trying to do some really great things. But like I said, it's almost a new category, right? So you've got to commercialise that, because the SoA traditionally has been the place where the revenue's generated.
Okay, so let's move tracks a little bit. Clayton, I want to ask you this question. So, there's an industry stat, 20% of people are receiving advice. You said when you stopped giving advice, you started doing more blogging content, more people were asking you questions. Do you think that's because you were just being more widely helpful? And do you think that as an industry, to attract more than 20%, we need to be thinking outside of just the people who are paying us money, and we need to be more helpful?
Yeah, the weird thing about financial advice is we consider ourselves different from every other industry. It's the weirdest thing. Like, if you just look outside of financial advice, the way that business works is you attract a client base because you educate an uneducated consumer. Like, it's really not that difficult, but we don't think like that for some reason. So if everyone spent their time educating the uneducated, then you're just going to be the place to go to. And I mean, if you read the book Blue Ocean, like that's about. That's not a new thing, but witnessing it now in my own life is a weird thing. But I just want to quickly touch on Ben's question about the SoA. I think where's the SoA come from? The SoA is, if you go back 20 years, it was a one-page handwritten document, and then a bunch of people got ripped off, and then all this standard text filled in. Over time, it just lumped on top of each other, on top of each other, on top of each other. And that was through confliction in remuneration. So as conflicts drop, why do we still need all the standard text? It's going to get to a point where 5 years from now, a lot of conflicts are going to be gone. And why do we, basically the SoA is almost, especially come from an aligned model, it's just a bunch of graphs and standard text to say, oh, it's sweet, I can just stick you there. Like, that's the point, right? But if there's no APL, then there's no conflicts, and then there's commissions, which cause a lot of the problems in the first place, especially with investments, and that's gone now, right? So you can't earn commissions from investments. So a lot of conflicts are gone, and especially if you got rid of the APL and products were open. I think, yeah, you could shrink SoA massively.
And as Mark said, that's what ASIC want to see.
Totally.
So moving back to the direction that I wanted to take it, Mia, I know you guys in the Let's Go close enough. You guys do a lot of workshop with clients, potential clients, and is that your philosophy around it? Is let's be helpful, let's give information, let's educate the uneducated.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the SoA document is a product and compliance document, and it comes right at the end. So we're so focused on how we can, get people more engaged with financial advice, understand that there is a need for it, and then, gently bring them in and then sort of really probe deep into what is it that they really want in life. And then how can financial advice maximise the probability of their outcomes being achieved? So we're massively focused on what can be done before you ever even get to an SoA, which is really just what products do they need to be able to help them on their journey.
And in your bio, one thing I really love is helping empower people to become healthier, wealthier, and happy clients.
Yeah.
We've got a question.
Yeah, thanks. Gentleman mentioned a bit earlier that at the moment financial planners focusing on the top 20% of income earners, and no, you said top 20%. Only 20% get advice. Okay. I hear that myself. I ordered a lot of boutique AFSLs, and a lot of them, whether they like it or not, tend to target the top 20%. What sort of strategy can you bring in that will expand that to maybe the top 50%? Right, the bottom 50% may not have disposable income to invest, and you may not be able to add value, but I might be wrong because I'm not a planner.
Let's go to Clayton with that one. What do you do?
I was expecting Mark to answer.
That's why I asked you, my friend. What do you think we can do as an industry to target
to broaden the offering to
right.
the top 50% as opposed to the top 20?
Yeah.
Like that.
I don't know why you were nervous, man. Okay. So anyway, cash flow. So cash flow is a massive thing, and you can, if you say someone doesn't have a lot of money, traditionally funds under management, not a great client. But if someone's his name calls them a Henry, high earning, not rich yet. So they're great clients as well. So, and that's just based on being able to help them with their cash flow. And there's a lot you can go into it, but more than just monitoring and pointing out where they're spending their money, you can actually control it as well.
And just being helpful, like as advisors, we can just actually care about what clients want and what they need, and just help them achieve that, and charge them a fee for it.
Totally.
Sounds silly, but okay. So Mark, you touched on tech, and we will go into a little bit of tech because you said, Salesforce. I don't have a business where I can jump into a $500,000 Salesforce solution. So, how do the smaller, newer businesses kind of deal with the tech side of running a really efficient financial planning firm?
Yeah, I think it's a big challenge. The solutions, I don't think exist right now in terms of, I don't think that there's a service provider that has a holistic offering of tools without it being attached to a license. We're seeing an emergence of that in the US. where the model's slightly different. And I'm pretty sure that in time there will be providers in Australia that offer a more holistic range of services which are not centred around the requirements of a licensee to protect their licence from a compliance perspective. So that's an issue, right? Because everything that the licensee buys and then provides to the end user, being the advisor, is about that licence protection. Because it's designed by the licensee. So, you know, the SoA template, everything that goes into that. Unless you're self-licensed, when you can go back to the provider and work with them to get improved templates, you're kind of stuck with it, right? Because nobody's doing anything different. It's beginning. There are licensees out there that are beginning to understand that they need to provide a suite of tools and a value proposition which isn't aligned to the distribution of product. So it's beginning to occur. That doesn't exist right now.
Well, Phil, I'm just going to jump in there with a comment. Just two things. Open architecture, plug and play with everything that is available. That's what you're going to look for. And Zapier.
You can't get him away from it.
And Mike, just that you raise it to you, because the guys up the back can't quite hear you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jess Brent.
Go, Jess.
Is that okay? Sorry to talk to you, Phil. I'm interested in, so the SoA is obviously the upfront engagement piece, and whether it works or not is obviously being debated. What, and Clayton, probably less relevant for you unless you want to talk about pre-sale, what are you doing specifically to continue to engage and educate your clients once you've onboarded them and they've been clients of yours for perhaps a number of years?
Fantastic question. Go, man.
Well, we've sort of built in that cash flow coaching. So we're having more contact with our clients after they decide that they want to become a client, and you go through the whole process and have signed off on the SoA. So we're having a bit more conversation with our clients on an ongoing basis. So we provide them with monthly reporting, so that way on a monthly basis we can check in on them and say, well, you know, you're on the budget, do you need to come in for another conversation? And when it comes to the what else we can be educating them on, we're offering seminars to our clients, and with the healthy, wealthy, happy kind of offering that we have, it's not just financial planning based seminars, so we're sort of building a service offering that gets our clients to come in to learn a little bit more about other areas of their life that might be of interest, and then also tackle the financial planning sort of update as well.
Yeah, so I want to kind of go back and think about yourself as a consumer and how you get value from anybody that provides a service to you. One of the issues that we have at the moment is that because of the SoA being centric to what we do and the way that we collect the data right up front with our initial meetings, is that you actually, even though you have great conversations with your clients, all of the gold is left in the ether as a conversation. You've only collected the low value stuff. So when you start to provide an ongoing service, it's dictated by the data that you've collected. So if you think about the hugely successful businesses around the planet at the moment, they're people that are collecting very detailed information about your life. And they regurgitate that to you in terms of value. So unless you have a process that allows you to collect rich data up front, providing deeper and more meaningful engagement down the track is going to be really tough. Right? So unless you can fix that part, unless you're able to grab the gold, use that data and then be able to regurgitate it as a service offering, you're going to be behind the eight ball. So no, until that's fixed, until you can really understand how you can hold that data in the same way that Facebook does, it's probably a really great example, they can push stuff back to you that's highly relevant because they know so much about what you do. We're in a great position. Our industry's in a fantastic position. We know so much more about our clients than a lot of other people, right? I mean, outside of probably a doctor, we collect, and sometimes we get that through insurances, right? So We are really at the forefront of collecting the most rich data from our clients, but we have nowhere to put it. Right now, we have nowhere to put it, we have no way to sort it, and we have no way to regurgitate it to create that engagement down the track. So
that's a perfect segue for me, Mark, because one of the most popular topics we talk about in the XY Advisor Facebook group, and if you're not in it, go to xyadvisor.com/community and join up, is technology. People love talking about tech, what new tech we're using. And data collection is all about having a technology solution to be able to capture that data and regurgitate it. So just quickly before we wrap up, I'd love to hear what tech all of you are using in your businesses, and Clayton, how are you collecting data with regards to your book?
MailChimp. That's pretty much the top one at the moment. I'm not great with tech. I'll outsource that question to Adrian Patty.
So we have Salesforce as our CRM, which has been a big investment to get that to do what we want it to do. We have Midwinter beautifully shrink wrapping the SoA. So it does exactly what we need it to do, and it has given it the right proportion within our business. So we don't have this huge piece of software that's designed to do a whole bunch of stuff that we're never going to use. We've put it in context, and Midwinter delivers on that for us very well.
We're currently using Xplan as our CRM, and we use... I'm currently using, and always under review. We use Asana for tasking, so not so much just the data collection. Infusionsoft for marketing, and Slack for talking to each other in the office.
Awesome. So we're going to wrap up. I hope you've really enjoyed this session. I know I have. So can we just give our panelists a round of applause? And Midwinter, as sponsors, have also generously donated everyone a copy of Clayton's new book, Fund Your Ideal Lifestyle. So we were talking about being helpful to clients, and a type of book like this is infinitely helpful to clients. So grab your copy on your way out after you've made sure we've really damaged the bill on the butt. So stick around. Adrian tried to scare you off before, but I'm here to encourage you to really go to town. So one last round of applause, and thank you very much.